I worked in my biggest push for joining or doing this fellowship was I just wanted to know more information about where I stood in special education in the world. So my name is Cole Thayer. I'm a special education teacher at Eastridge Elementary School, and my title is The Loudest Voice is Not Always the Right Voice. So in true special education fashion, I have set it up as a get ready, do done for executive functioning, and I'm really going to focus on the do. So what did I want to do for CCA fellowship was very different than what I ended up doing throughout the 2020-2021 school year. So I'm going to go over what I actually ended up doing and what I learned as a teacher and my next steps. So what I actually wanted to do for CEA was a lot more around advocacy for special education students, families, and service providers. My goal was to make waves, be loud, because in my thought at the time, I thought that that would bring upon change quicker. My result was I made people uncomfortable, and I didn't necessarily get the results that I intended for. So my reflection came, the loudest voice isn't always the best voice. So in the beginning, how is this going to help students? For helping my students, my teachers and staff, and the union, I really wanted to work on being teaching and working on effective communication. So with effective communication with my students, it turned into, we pulled them for surveys and found out what they wanted, and what they wanted was more field trips because COVID interrupted our learning. So we really worked on how to create new types of field trips and thinking outside of the box. And you'll see a picture of Iman Judah. That was our big win because it also translated into talking to her specifically on Lobby Day, but I'll talk about that later. How is this going to help teachers? So similar to how we developed our survey for students, or I developed the survey for students and what they wanted and needed, we did a similar one for our survey to help and support teachers. So what we came up with, myself and another AR in the building, we pulled our teachers for what things that they needed and they felt that they needed. What we also found out was a lot of this we couldn't do at a building level. It became into a district level. So because it started to go into a district level, it made me think about, well, kind of taking that next step in the union and in my support, how am I going to do this? How am I going to help teachers? So my thought process was joining our bargaining support team. So joining the bargaining support team was really interesting to me because it really, I feel really hopeful because we actually have a seat at our table at our union or at our during our meetings. And I think having a teacher voice and having a union representative during bargaining is something I thought everybody had, and I'm quickly finding out that not a lot of districts do. So I felt very valued that Cherry Creek did have that. So in doing so, we wanted, our job at the bargaining support team was to create stories around our teachers in our local to get them in real time and real life held and heard at the table. So these are just a few examples of some of the story times that we created and some things that we posted on social media that we had persons share at the bargaining table, and that we were supported by our union and having them really help and coach us and mentor us and how to effectively communicate our message. So a lot of it was having them support and post things on our social media campaigns and really drive a real-time conversation. So that was really how we could support our teachers. The next part was going to how to help the union. So going into how to help the union, it was amazing to go to Lobby Day. I felt like a kid in a candy store, and I never thought I was going to get so excited, but I really did. So talking with Iman Judah and talking with Jeff Bridges, it was quite apparent in who I think had a better pulse on the needs due to the teachers being a little, the further away from you get from the classroom, the further away you get from understanding where teachers are and what we need. And that can be said for some really interesting conversations I had with Jeff Bridges. So it's something where now that I know what I know, I feel more comfortable and confident stepping up and continuing to do things like Lobby Day and get the voices of teachers and story time out there. So this is just a quick video of it, but I'm not going to show it for time's sake. And then what did I learn? I definitely learned that the loudest voice is not always the right voice. I learned how to share my space and making sure that I understood that just because I see one thing one way isn't always the best way, and really starting to understand my role as a educator, a special education teacher, and a member of my union. So where do I see my future in my leadership? I definitely want to continue working on the bargaining support team. I really learned a lot, and I think it's got legs, and we can really make some moves. Next year, I will not be at a Title I school, so this is going to be my first time being in a non-title school. So now I feel like I have better ground to stand and talk about when the haves and the have-nots come forth. I think I have a better understanding of where my position is and what I would like to see for advocacy and equity work with students with special education needs and disabilities. I'd like to continue attending bargaining and board meetings, as those were my ear. I had a really firm understanding of where we were going as a district. Being more up to date on educational legislation, I never knew that I could provide testimony, so that was a huge thing for me, which really makes me interested in getting more involved in that way. And then in the fall, I would like to join our social justice committee, and thank you, Kelly Asuna, for introducing me to that. So that is pretty much my get ready, do done for what I've worked on in this during my fellowship project.